So welcome to the studio, David and Michael. Glad you could come up to Two Rivers.
Thank you for having us here. This is
my pleasure.
This is really fun to be here right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on a very special episode of the Art Bros. We're here with my friend and artist, Rebecca Allan.
Hi guys.
Hello.
So happy to welcome you to the studio.
It's beautiful here. I wish you guys could see it. It's very lit. There's a beautiful view of the river, and it's very appropriate because the river has a lot to do with your work.
Yeah.
So, Rebecca, just for the people listening, can you tell us a little basics about yourself?
Sure. Today we're in my studio in the Bronx. We are overlooking the Hudson and Harlem rivers, the confluence of those two rivers. And I've been here for 12 years in New York. And I've been painting for about 30 years, so I really have been at it for a long time. My background includes working as an artist and an educator. I lived in Seattle for many years, and I was a teacher there and an artist in residence with the State Arts Council. Mm-hmm. So I have done a lot of different kinds of work as a working artist, and in 2014, I made a big change, and I left what was a full-time arts administrative job to devote myself almost entirely to my practice as a painter and to teaching and to writing, and so that's what I'm doing now.
That's what I love that so much, that you came back to art, and I really like that. And administration, there's honor in that. But the fact that you left that security, I would say, to come back to this, to rely on your talents again, that's pretty good. For those of you looking on the screen, we got a couple of Rebecca's works in front of us, and this is really special. We've never done an episode where we actually have the works in front of us with the artist right here.
It's a bit of a faux pas on our part, but not this time.
Yeah. So as you can see, Rebecca works in the abstract. She's very influenced in the abstract expressionism.
Yes.
And we are looking actually at landscapes, believe it or not.
Yes.
So when I first looked at Rebecca's work, I didn't really understand what I was seeing. I liked it. You work with color very well. And you explained to me that you're working in landscapes. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit, please?
Well, I do work within an abstract language, that's true, and it's a formal approach that I feel most compelled by in terms of speaking metaphorically about the landscape and about living life as a human being. And so the use of line and color and form that is not describing a particular place as we might observe it in a photograph is my choice, and I am a virtuosic draftsman. I draw from life. My sketchbook drawings are often a point of departure for the abstract work. So there is grounding in what we would call the quote-unquote real world in these paintings, but they are transformed in the process of painting to really a body or an arena within which we're thinking about landscape or water or sky or ground. So there's a translation process in this.
That's what I really like.
I
really like that about you.
I don't want to
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't want to say something that might be simplifying what you said.
Say whatever.
It's almost like you're sucking out the essence out of what you've seen and try to put it on as...
It is.
Yeah.
So you're
as coherently
love
as
it.
you can with an abstract lens.
And the way I see it.
I love that word, essence. Yeah.
The way I see it, it's the emotion. It's the sublime. It's exactly what the Hudson River School is trying to recreate with their realistic depictions of the Hudson Valley. What you're doing, in my opinion, is you are taking the sublime emotion and you're translating it the way you see it so that we can see it that way too. Would that be a good way to describe it?
I think that's a beautiful characterization of the process. And I like the fact that you brought up these predecessors, the painters of the Hudson River School, because I think that one of the things that the art bros do is to try to demystify the looking at contemporary art and what is it that we're seeing, and how do we enter into a work that is almost completely non-objective. But I think the point that I like to make is that there is a history of thinking about other artists from the past in all of
building
these
blocks,
works.
foundations.
Absolutely, building blocks and foundations. And so if we were to look at Shama River Valley, for example, and put it next to a Picasso collage, you would be able to make visual connections in terms of how the space is pushed back or pulled forward. So these formal principles that I was talking about earlier are just part of the art of painting, whether it's in 2016 or 1916.
Yeah, like it's pretty impossible for the past not to inform the future. Like it all builds up in little layers throughout the years.
And speaking
Absolutely.
of your process, well, speaking of painting, can you tell us about your process?
Sure. Well, we're looking around the studio right now, and we're looking at two works that are finished, Voltaire's Garden and the Garden of Isabella d'Este, but we're also looking at another painting in progress. And if you look at Chama River Valley, you can see that there are areas of the canvas that are somewhat raw and look like just a stain of paint, one layer. See that sort of in the center to the right there, that little pale green area where there's a lot of drips. So that's the underpainting. This is an underpainting, what we would call
This is the underpainting.
Yeah, this is the underpainting, but it's pretty far along.
How do you know that?
Well, I don't think that a painting is finished until there is a dynamic tension that I'm satisfied with, and sometimes that happens as a result of the play between opaque and transparent. Sometimes it has to do with the way in which shapes lock together with other shapes. Is there an overall coherence or a logic that is emerging? I mean, even if you just kind of compare the sky in the Chama River painting with the upper portion of Voltaire's Garden, you can tell that there are more layers of color on there. It's still vibrant and filled with light, but there's still something unresolved to me in this, that it may go through another iteration in which I lay down more lines and block out certain areas. It's really a push and pull kind of experience.
Can you tell me about is there any of the peels in this
Not
work?
yet, but you have you guys are really,
So can you just
you really have learned looking at
Of
paintings.
course. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your peel process? Because when I wrote about you in one of my papers, I made a mention that the peel is something unique that I haven't seen before, that you've introduced me to.
That's great. The peel is a skin of paint. It's a very thin, almost seaweed-like skin of dried paint that I have peeled up from my glass palette with a razor blade. So I use it as a collage element, and oftentimes when you have a lot of layers of pigment on a canvas, the surface can get dull or uninflected. So I'll use the peels as a way to introduce a new texture or a new spot of color. So in Voltaire's Garden, you can see the peels are sort of arranged randomly, but they correspond to purple, green, hot pink, and there's a reinforcement of one texture by the use of another texture which is in the same color family. So those peels to me have a skin-like
They do.
quality.
What's the term? You're grafting it on?
You're grafting.
Oh!
Kind of like a surgery.
You're grafting.
I think that is amazing. I love that.
I'll tell you what I like the most about the peels.
Grafting.
The peels encourage you to look up close at the painting, because from our view, I don't
Right.
see the peels from a distance. When you go up and you experience the painting in front of you, you start noticing that this texture is a lot different than this texture. There's something going on here. So for a painter, which I'm not a painter, but I know Fancy Dave is, when you see things like that, I'm sure it just excites you. Like you want to dissect what's going on here. And so the peels kind of, they go into the aspect of recycling. And I know you're a big environmentalist. So can you tell me how the environment and environmental issues affect your art?
Well, yes, you are right. I don't want to overstate that. And we're going to start at this point, and we're going to come back around to it. I have a feeling that
Okay.
we're going to go far and come back. Yes, I am an artist who is deeply concerned about the state of the planet and about all of the impacts of climate change. And I not only paint with that in mind, but I also collaborate with other artists in the Crossroads Project, which we'll talk about. But painting is to me, painting is not at base a political act. It's an act of expression and also of searching to define the world. And
Would you consider a reaction maybe?
it's a response to me. Painting is a response to all aspects of life, to the wonder, the pain, the beauty. And in my work, I'm not trying to send a message about save the planet per se, and there are so many other very accomplished artists who work in that domain. But what I'm trying to do is to bring you into the experience of beauty or wonder or curiosity, like you described with moving in and trying to understand what those peels are. But I'm looking at the elements of the planet, how water carves through the earth, how weather impacts the plant life that we see every day. And so in that respect, yes, I'm very involved in environmental concerns. The peels are reclaimed paint, so it's reclaiming a material that would have otherwise just been scraped off my palette and put into the trash. You know, what was I thinking when I was doing that? And noticed that this is a beautiful material that could be reused. So it's connected with a sense of conserving, which I think most people who are artists think about. We think about the preciousness of resources, of the things that are around us, and try not to take them for granted.
Yeah, like even on a less noble scale, like trying not to spend too much on your materials as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be, when you choose a life as an artist, whether or not you come from a wealthy family, it doesn't matter. You have to make sacrifices, and this is a life that is full of risks and full of satisfactions.
That's good. I like that. It reminds me of this quote I heard about Jimi Hendrix. He could play Purple Rain on a little guitar. It's $100, or he could play it on a $5,000 guitar. Either way, it's still Purple Rain.
I love it.
Yeah. So I do want to mention to everyone that you like to use what you find in the world. I remember you showed us this big block of charcoal, and you got so excited because you could not wait to use it. And I want people to know that about you. I do. I do.
Yeah.